Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm Chris Laverme. I'm the transition counselor at Greenwich High School. And once again this year, we're having our annual College Support Service panel that is sponsored by both the school counseling and special education departments at Greenwich High School, as well as the District Office of Special Education and Student Supports within the Greenwich Public Schools. We are very, very fortunate tonight to have 5 panelists that have agreed to be with us on this Thursday evening. And I'm just going to introduce them briefly. We have Lynn DeSilva, who is the director of the Arch Learning Program at Dean College. We have Federico Giltman, who is the associate director of admissions at Lynn University from Boca Raton, Florida. We have Mr. Joe Gaines, who is the director of the Center for Student Accessibility at Manhattanville College in Purchase, New York. We have Mary Ellen Guardino, who is the director of the Office of Accommodations and Accessibility at Marist College in Poughkeepsie, New York. And we have our home state university represented by Allison Knight, Assistant Director of Assessment and Enhanced Services Programs at the University of Connecticut. So welcome, panelists, welcome. So as I said, this has been an annual event. Parents, please feel free to hold your questions. We're going to give each panelist about 5 minutes to express a little bit or talk a little bit about their specific program and maybe something unique about that program. Remember, we're talking about accommodations, we're talking about college supports. And I think it's very important tonight to listen to what these distinguished panelists have to say. They are on the front line. They do this each day on their campuses. And it's very, very important to understand the similarities between high school and college, but also the differences between high school and college and seeking accommodations, et cetera. So we're going to jump right into this, and I'm going to ask Lynn DeSilva from Dean College, the director of the Arch Learning Program, to speak a little bit about Dean College. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks for having me here tonight, and welcome everyone. I know it's a busy time of year, so we appreciate you attending the webinar this evening. Dean College is a small liberal arts college located in Franklin, Massachusetts. And something that makes us distinct for our special needs population is the Arch Learning Community. The Arch Learning Community is a program within Dean College that has been designed specifically for students with diagnosed learning disabilities and to provide academic support to those students. We do have a specialized application process. So as you're going through the process of applying to colleges, we do have a specialized application on the Dean app as well as on the Common App. Really, it's a very small supplemental application that asks you why you are interested in the Arch Learning Community. The Arch Learning Community is special in the sense that we provide support services for students with diagnosed learning disabilities within a specialized community. So as a first-year student coming into the Arch Learning Community, students start off their experience at Dean College with an orientation. We bring in the Arch Learning Community students 2 or 3 days prior to the general population moving onto campus. So that they have a chance to acclimate themselves to the campus, to the surrounding area, and they also have a chance to get to know one another. And all of the Arch Learning Community staff is present during that time, so they also get a chance to get to know their academic advisor pretty well during that time. Another nice thing that we have the opportunity to do during that time is to give them their schedules. They meet with our accessibility director so that we can ensure that their accommodations are not only in place before the start of the semester, but we assist them with sending out those letters to all of their professors and their instructors so that everybody is clear what accommodations are in place for them. We use that time also to make sure they know how to sign up for tutoring services, the writing center, the math center, all of those additional support services that the college offers. Each first-year student will be assigned an academic coach, and they receive 3 hours of one-on-one academic support each week during their first year in the Arch Learning Community. What's unique about this academic coaching program is that they are assigned a specific coach that they work with for the entirety of their time at Dean College. And as you research different colleges, you're going to hear and see a lot of varying academic coaching programs out there. So be sure to ask questions like, will my child see the same person? Will they have the same schedule each time that they go? Will they receive the consistency there? And that's something that we're really proud of that we have available to our students. Additionally, our first-year students will take 2 Arch-specific classes during each semester of their first year. These classes are a bit smaller in size. They are taught by instructors who have background and experience teaching to students with learning differences. So the content itself of the classes is not altered. They're, 3-credit gen ed classes. But the way in which the material is delivered to the students is scaffolded in a way that they teach multimodally and offer a little bit more support to students. So we have the academic coaching, we have the Arch-specific classes. We also have specialized advisors that have smaller caseloads so that they can have a lot more touch points with the students in the Arch Learning Community. A nice specific thing about Dean College, and this is campus-wide, not just within the Arch Learning Community, is we also have a monitoring program. So every 3 weeks, students, academic coaches, athletic coaches, advisors, as well as parents receive kind of progress reports that kind of give us an idea how a student is doing in their class, their grade, their attendance. And the nice thing about our monitoring system is that if a student is struggling or having any sort of difficulty and needs some additional support, we catch it really early. Finding out in week 12 of the semester that a student is struggling, it's sometimes really hard to kind of get them back on track. So this monitoring system allows us a lot of touch points with the students, and it gives us a nice overview. We do pride ourselves on our communication with parents. We do have students in the Arch Learning Community sign a FERPA waiver so that we are allowed to have consistent contact with parents. We're very well aware that you have been a staunch advocate for your student for 18 years, and you know your student best, you know how they learn, and we value that collaborative relationship that we have with parents in servicing our students. So we do ask at the time of application that students submit documentation, a neuropsych eval, their educational testing, as well as a 504 and IEP that gives us a very good indication of their readiness for college. But we are looking for students who are college ready. So not just academically, but socially and emotionally, that they can live independently. They can take their medication on their own. They can do their own laundry. They can wake themselves up in the morning, those kind of things. And we do also, as a last point of reference, require the student to have an interview with our staff so that we have an opportunity to ask them, what some of their challenges are academically, but also what their successes are and how they feel like their learning profile would match well with that and the supports that we offer at Dean College within the Arch Learning Community.
Thank you very much. One question I have for you is the application process a different application process for the Arch Learning Community, or is it the same as the application process for the university, the college in general?
Good question. It's actually a supplemental application. So they would fill out the Dean College application, and the Arch Learning Community has a very short, I think there's 3 questions. It's a supplemental application.
Okay. Thank you, Lynn. We'll be checking back with you in a little bit.
You're welcome.
We're going to move right on, and we're going to head down the coast to Boca Raton, Florida, where we have Mr. Freddie Giltman, and he is the Associate Director of Admissions at Lynn University in Boca Raton. Freddie, it's all yours.
All right, Chris, thank you so much for the warm welcome. I'll probably get kicked off this panel when I say that it's a brisk 75 degrees right now in Boca Raton, Florida. But I'm excited to talk to you a little bit.
We're booting you out. That's it.
All right, it's been good. 30 seconds.
No, okay. No, we love it. We love it.
So I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about Lynn University. Before I talk about our academic support program for students with a diagnosed learning difference, it's very important for the community to know that our students do not have any modifications or changes within the rigor while they're at the university. And two key components that we have that make us very unique. In the midst of COVID, we never closed our doors outside of those 8 weeks in March. So we developed something called a block schedule. So all of our students with or without a diagnosed learning difference, they only take one course every 4 weeks, Monday through Thursdays for 2.5 hours per day. The average class size is 18 students per class. Our faculty members love it because instead of reading 200 essays per week, they're only working with 18 students per week. And this also helps the comprehension level, especially knowing that what we're seeing post-pandemic results within the communities. Secondly, when we were all in college, we all spent about $3,000 on textbooks that when you would try to sell back, you would only get $10 after reading 2 chapters. So for the 5th consecutive term, Lynn University is an Apple Distinguished School. We actually do not provide tenure to our faculty members, and they actually rejected that notion, interestingly enough. But what's great about the iPad Pro, it's not the device, it's the ecosystem behind it. What does that mean for families? Our faculty members wrote over 80 electronic iBooks. So let's say that in this population, you have dyslexia. You can actually highlight the passage and it's going to become an audiobook for you. Maybe you have ADD or ADHD. You can actually record the class without permission because the faculty members are accustomed to it. Now, once you apply to Lynn University, we do not take into consideration your diagnosed learning difference, and very similar to Dean, we have a supplemental application. I'm going to give you a quick timeline of our academic support program. So once you apply, you'll be submitting your psychoeducational evaluation. Just like the NFL draft, each summer, our academic coaches go through each evaluation and they actually hand select which student they feel they're going to work best with. It's not randomized, it's actually hand selected. So let's say that you're struggling with severe anxiety. We have some great counselors that are very much focused on that, and they personally hand select those students. Now, on our side, we have a few unique features. Again, I go back to no modifications, no change in rigor. The only 3 individuals that will know that you have a diagnosed learning difference: your admission counselor, your academic coach, and yourself. If you decide not to tell anyone, up to you. So first of all, when you sit down with your academic coach, and they are certified by the International Coaches Federation, they are staff members, not faculty. That means they're solely here to work with you on executive functioning, time management, organizational skills, study techniques, study mechanisms. They will provide you in your first session your accommodations. They will not give it to your faculty. Why? Our thought process is we want you to become strong, independent learners who can advocate for themselves. So any accommodations you may be receiving, if you don't let your faculty member know, you won't be receiving them. The academic coach then will work on your tutoring and your writing center. A few great things about our writing center and our tutoring program: it is not peer-led. On the contrary, all the individuals must have their master's or terminal degree. We live where people vacation. In our own backyard, we have 36 headquarters and over 1,500 multinational corporations. So when you're taking a technology course, one of our tutors used to be the director of IT for IBM. Here's the great thing about our academic support program. It's been around since 1990. We've had our ups and downs, but we consistently adapt it to what's going on in society. And secondly, we have a low retention rate in that program purposely. Our goal is for you not to use the program all 4 years. Can you use it if you decide? Absolutely. But we noticed that juniors and seniors really use it more as a safety blanket. So our term of success is when you say after your first or second year, Mom and Dad, I no longer need the program. And with our new block schedule, rather than go from English to math to science to an elective all in one day, if you feel that you're struggling in a course, just stay a few minutes after your block schedule and you can talk with your faculty member. And we've actually seen a diminishment in academic support services, in students failing, and we've seen an increase in grades, participation, and again, a low retention rate, which we deem a success. I know it's a lot of information to take in, and we have some great panelists here. So Chris, I appreciate your time and I'll pass it on.
Okay, thank you, Freddie. Really, we really appreciate you being on board, and we'll get back to you shortly. And yes, we are very jealous, all of us, of 75 degrees, palm trees, and the beautiful Atlantic Ocean right around the corner from Lynn University. But you know, the weather's actually up here has been pretty decent, so we're not going to complain too much. So we're going to move right along. We're going to come back up close to home, and we're going to go with. Hold on. See, I had a timer on. We're going to go to Manhattanville College, which is in Purchase, New York. And we're going to ask Mr. Joe Gaines, the director of the Center for Student Accessibility, to talk a little about Manhattanville and some of the unique programs that Manhattanville has to offer.
Thanks, Chris. Good evening, everybody. So as Chris said, thank you for the introduction. I'm Joe Gaines. I'm the director over in the Center for Student Accessibility at Manhattanville College. Similar to my colleagues here, we have some great support programs that run through our office. So just really quickly, our process in onboarding we have 2 paid support programs that I'll get into in a second. We operate outside of the admissions process. So after students are admitted to the college, they then inquire to our office about registering for accommodations with our office, as well as applying to the programs that we offer. So we try to separate these processes out in order to help students understand that the process upon entering college and receiving accommodations and advocating for yourself sort of begins after you come through the door, and that process is separate from the one that they might be very used to when they're in high school, and that there are many, many similarities, obviously. Many of those requests are often the same and accommodations are the same, but they're often quite different. And also importantly, that process really begins with the student. So after the student it decides I'm a Manhattanville student, this is where I want to go, they apply for accommodations through our office. They sit down for an intake interview with me or a staff member through my office. We talk about their learning styles, things that have worked in the past, things that they feel might work for them in college. Of course, here are our suggestions after we review their documentation. And as my colleagues have said, acceptable documentation for students, it differs from student to student, but typically psychoeducational evaluations, 504s, IEPs, any of the various types of documentation you're likely familiar with at this point. And also in that application indicate to us that they're interested in one of our programs. So the first program is what we call the Valiant Learning Support Program. So just with some context, Manhattanville College, we're the Valiants, that's why. So in the Valiant Learning Support Program is 3 hours a week with one of our learning specialists. We keep learning specialists on staff, each hold a master's degree, have a background in special education and student support and academic resource support. In those 3 hours a week, they'll work on things like executive functioning, time management. They'll use the students' content in their classes in order to better understand how to tackle that content, break it down, organize it, essentially try to understand that big difference between making that leap from high school, in which I try to sort of simplify and say, as a high school student, you probably had homework every day. In college, you might have a class in which you have 3 tests and that's it. And that can be really tough, especially for a first-year student to really wrap their head around. Their learning specialist will help them understand that just because your first thing that you get graded on in this class is due in a month doesn't mean that you start studying for it, 28 days from now. They'll help them break that down into what's your studying style? How do you study? As we know, some of our students don't quite have that worked out yet. And when I was a college student, I didn't either. That's sort of where you learn those skills, and they help sort of develop that sort of thing as they get there. They'll help them break down bigger papers into smaller papers, help workshop the thesis process, the process of creating a thesis, help them understand what college level research looks like, because it can be and often should be more than just a Google search, those sorts of things for the students in these sessions. We also operate. The Valiant Learning Support Program is a part of the greater learning commons inside of Manhattanville College in the library. What that means is that we share a space with the Writing Center and the Academic Resource Center. So those centers are non-fee-based programs open to the overall community at Manhattanville. The Writing Center works specifically in the writing process at any juncture where the student is at. And we try to sort of separate these sorts of supports out to help students understand that there's a difference between time management, executive functioning, and the writing process, and the specific content area questions that you might have. So if you have questions, you're taking Calculus 1, while my learning specialists are very gifted people, they may not know Calculus 1 or organic chemistry, which means that you might be comfortable talking to them, but you really should be seeking resources where they're best able to help you. So we are located in the same location, but we do kind of parse that sort of thing out for them. The other resource that we have through our office, the other paid program, is specifically for students on the autism spectrum, but also for related related diagnoses. So that program is called the Pathways and Connections program. Again, for students on the autism spectrum, and it's an executive functioning program, but it's really geared towards more the social side of acclimating to college. Essentially, colleges are big, very different places from high schools. They have millions of different offices, titles of people, and things that are often quite difficult for students who are not familiar with higher ed, like we are here in this Zoom room, to understand how you access those services, those folks on campus, how to get connected to college life, how to adapt a little bit. It's not necessarily a transition program. We tell students it's not to learn how to do laundry. It's how to understand how to connect with, say, what we call in our school the Clark Center, which is community service and getting more involved in volunteering. And not just that it exists, but why might a student want to get more involved in that sort of thing? How does that help you sort of socially connect with the college's mission and other folks on campus? And also things like career services and other support services on campus, and help them understand that college is more than just academics. It's more than paper writing and tests. So those are our two major programs out of our office. And as I said, all students who come through, like any accessibility office, there are always going to be staff members to help them make that transition, to help them understand that change in accommodations and how that changes from high school, and their role in disclosing and their role in advocating for themselves, but also helping them understand that these different services exist as a larger web of support for students, and to understand how to access those things, how to access the different folks to ultimately push their goals and build that advocacy up slowly. Obviously, students, they might have been receiving accommodations for a long time, dating sometimes back to middle or even elementary school, but have very rarely been really deeply involved in that process of advocating for themselves and truly understanding and pushing what their needs are forward in front of somebody. So our role in our office is not just to support, but to teach students how to support themselves and how to ask those questions and how to let their professors know, not just, hey, professor, here's my accommodations letter, thank you, like many of our students like to do, but instead, have that conversation, open that dialogue with your instructor and your learning specialist if need be, to help them understand it's not just that you receive extended time on tests, it's not just that you might be approved to record your classes, but perhaps why you might want to tell your professor why you may record class at certain times, or why you might be approved for that sort of thing. How does that assist you, and how might they be involved in that process?
Thank you, Joseph. Really appreciate it. Thank you for being on the panel with us this year and representing Manhattanville College. And we'll be checking back with you in a few moments as well. So we're going to head up the Hudson River to the beautiful campus of Marist College, and Mary Ellen Gordino, who has been a frequent representative here on the panel, is joining us once again. So Mary Ellen, please tell us some wonderful things about Marist College and your support and accommodations program at Marist.
Thanks so much, Chris, and a warm welcome to everyone. So like Chris mentioned, my name is Mary Ellen Gordino, and I'm the director of the accommodations office here at Marist. Marist is a liberal arts college, and we are located 90 minutes north of the city and 9 minutes south of Albany. As Chris mentioned, it's a beautiful, beautiful campus. So even if you don't want to go to Marist, just come here and visit, because it's just so beautiful. Just like everyone else is describing, in our office, through the accommodations office, we have a program that's called our Learning Support Program. And a little bit different than other schools is that when students apply to our Learning Support Program, they also apply to Marist simultaneously. We also have a supplemental application. And so we actually make the admission decision on the student. So if the student gets into the Learning Support Program, they get into Marist. And if they do not get into the Learning Support Program, then they do not get into Marist. So they fill out, the Common App or the Marist application, and then that supplemental application. Just like many other programs, we're a fee-based program, and students get to meet with a learning specialist twice a week for 45 minutes. And just like everyone else mentioned, we work with our students on time management, that executive functioning, organization, writing, all types of academic strategies. So part of the process is when students apply and get into our program, we also, like Lynn was mentioning, also do an interview to learn more about the student and to understand, what their needs are. And over the summer, we actually go back through our interview packets and we're able to really place the student with the appropriate specialist. And again, our students have the same specialist for as long as they're in the program, if it's 1 year or 4 years, whatever it may be. And we also monitor our students very closely. After 3 or 4 weeks into the semester, we reach out to the faculty members to find out how students are doing in those classes. Again, we get our midterm marks, and then again, we reach out around week 8 or 9, and then again, we get the final marks. Our students are also able to sign a FERPA waiver, so we can communicate with our faculty members and parents if need be. But we always let the student know that we're going to be doing that, so that we're always on the same page and the student is always part of that conversation as well. So to highlight a couple of things that are, really special about our program is we have a program that happens right before the school year begins, and it's called AIM, Achievement, Involvement, and Mentorship. And students get to move in a couple days earlier than the regular freshmen, and we go over all different types of academic things, their schedules, how to use our online systems, and then we do a lot of social activities with them too, and we get them acclimated to the campus, both academically and socially. They also get paired up with a mentor, so that's someone who is currently in our program that's an upperclassman and can kind of help them navigate through their first year at Marist. And then throughout the year, that mentoring doesn't stop. After those 3 days in the program, we do all different types of get-togethers and workshops and events with them throughout their first year. New to our program this year is we actually have learning support modules that our learning specialists created, and we're really proud of them. And so in the fall semester, our students learned about note-taking strategies, reading strategies, and time management. And in the spring, they're going to be going through online modules with their learning specialists on organization, campus resources, and motivation. And so what our goal is to have these modules for all 4 years. And so we're developing them in-house. And the sophomores will have different modules, the juniors will have different modules, and the seniors, because at each point in their career, they're going to have different needs and expectations. And so we cover different topics with them. We also have an ADHD support group, which is called Advantage, that meets twice a month, and they go over all different types of topics. And students who are in the program can be a part of that group, and any student at Marist College can be a part of that group as well, because just because they have ADHD doesn't mean they're necessarily registered with our office. We also have another group that's called Minds of All Kinds, and that meets on a monthly basis as well. And again, that's really specific to students, neurodiverse learners, but we welcome all students, and it's just another group for students to be a part of and to feel included and to feel connected to our office. We also have a Delta Alpha Pi, which is our National Honor Society, and we have a lot of students in that, and we're really proud of that because students have to obtain a certain GPA and do well academically to be part of that organization as well. So we have a wonderful induction ceremony every year that we get to induct new students into. And then just like everyone else mentioned, we do tons of different workshops and events throughout the whole year, time management, organization, final exam prep. And so, we really want to help our students succeed academically. And I don't even know if I mentioned this in the beginning because I got right into the program, but in order to be part of our program, you have to have a primary diagnosis of a learning disability or ADHD. And our program has been around for a really long time. It's been around since 1982, and so we take in about 50 to 70 students a year into the program. And, we have on average about 220 students in our program. So if you're interested in learning more about our program, we do 2 open houses. One will be in February and one will be in March at night on Zoom. And you're more than welcome to come visit us here at our office in our administrative building in Donnelly, and we'd be happy to meet with you as well. So again, Chris, thanks so much for having me. And, I'll hand it over to UConn next too.
Okay, thank you, Mary Ellen. Before we move on to UConn, I just want to remind parents and folks that are out there on the call tonight, please, if you have questions, we have a Q&A that we'll have about the last 10 minutes of the program. Please put those questions in the Q&A and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible. In the meantime, we are going to move across the state of Connecticut to our flagship state university, University of Connecticut, and we're going to welcome Miss Allison Knight, who's the Assistant Director of Assessment and Enhancement Service Programs at the University of Connecticut. So welcome, Allison.
Thanks so much, Chris. I'm glad to be here tonight. So as many of you know, UConn is a large Research One or R1 university which provides students a huge amount of opportunities socially, academically, recreationally. And we have our primary campus at Storrs, as well as our regional campuses in Hartford, Stamford, Avery Point, and Waterbury. To zoom out a little bit, in our overarching office, the Center for Students with Disabilities was founded over 50 years ago. We had, as of last academic year, 5,300 or so students registered with our office across all of the campuses. And we provide academic, dining, residential, campus access, communication, accommodations. And so that's to provide equal access to students. And we also house our enhanced services programs, such as the Beyond Access program. In terms of the Center for Students with Disabilities in general, one thing that I would say is quite unique is our very robust assistive technology offerings. We have the CSD technology team and offer a whole host of supports related to note-taking, related to alternate media formats, and just a lot of accommodations that can really be supportive to students with learning disabilities or who are neurodiverse. And a lot of the time when I was a disability service professional prior to this role, I would meet with students specifically with ADHD and learning disabilities, and they would say, I had no idea that this was available. This is amazing. And it perfectly, provides me access. So I think that is very important for students, especially in this day and this age with so many hybrid classes, professors recording. So our Beyond Access program is our primary enhanced services program. And it's actually open to any UConn student. It is a requirement to be an admitted student to participate in Beyond Access. In practice, the students we have participating are students who are registered with our center, and students have to complete an application, but the application is just to collect information about them, to better understand their strengths, the areas that are a little bit more challenging. And there's no, since it's open to really anyone, there's no limitations on the type of condition or the type of learning profile a student can have to participate. UConn used to have a lot of different programs to support students. We had a program specific to students with learning disabilities. We had one specific to students with ADHD. And we had one specific to students on the autism spectrum. And at some point, I want to say back in 2008, we said, we can do all of this at the same time. Students are complicated. They often have more than one or two conditions. And, we can just serve the needs of all of these students under the same umbrella of Beyond Access. And so the purpose of Beyond Access is to provide enhanced support for students whose needs are not fully met by accommodations, and we promote success. So it goes beyond our center's mission of access. And one of the things we always say is that we meet students where they're at in their journey. Whether it's that they're struggling to check their email on a regular basis, we can support you in that. Whether you just need some brush up on, your study strategies and those executive function skills, or you want some career development assistance, we can support that too. So everything in between in that whole range. And, the philosophy is to really help students develop self-awareness, self-determination, and self-advocacy. We individualize the program based on each student's needs. And so students are matched with strategy instructors. Sounds like a little bit of a different model than some of the other programs, because while we do have professional staff members, such as myself, who meet with students, many of our strategy instructors are graduate students, and they're in fields like school psychology, special education, and social work. So they have a lot of educational background in supporting students with different learning profiles, and we also provide them specialized training. The nice thing about that can be that the graduate students are so close in their experience to the students that they're partnered with. They, have recently been an undergraduate. They remember exactly what it's like. They're still doing some of that work. They're writing those papers. They're managing their time in really intensive ways a lot of the time. And, they're just excellent with our students. It's really helpful for building rapport too, although it works just as well with our professional staff members. And so when students participate in Beyond Access, they can select from 4 tracks. So they can meet with a strategy instructor for 1, 1.5, 2, or 3 hours per week. They meet with the same strategy instructor as best possible for the entire time they participate in the program. And they can split up their time between usually 1 to 3 meetings per week, but they talk about that with their assigned strategy instructor. So when I receive an application from a student, I review it, and then I will match that student with the strategy instructor who will be the best fit, based on their personality and their expertise to meet that student's needs. A lot of the time, students are working on goals related to executive functions, so supporting those time management skills, those organizational skills. And another really big area of focus is helping students make social connections on campus and improve social skills. So depending on the exact student's needs and where they're at in their journey, we might be doing some social skills instruction, how to initiate conversations, or we might be helping students find clubs that they can join. We also offer study halls, which are not mandatory, but we provide that opportunity to kind of body double with other students and do some work. And we have the Husky Hangouts program, which is a weekly social group where we meet, facilitate some conversation, and have some fun activities. We also have our UConn GPS program, which is a pre-semester program to help students transitioning into the university. So they arrive early to campus, they get familiarized, they do fun activities, they make some great peer connections, and we go over some pointers related to organization, college expectations, time management, all those good things you want to get your students started off on the right foot. Something I would say that's very unique about the program, the students really develop such strong connections with their strategy instructors. Right now in the spring semester, we have a student who's going abroad to Europe and wants to continue working with their strategy instructor while they're abroad in a completely different time zone. We also, within Beyond Access, but also within our center, have really great connections to local businesses. We have helped students have job shadowing opportunities, which have led to, internships and then actual employment. And we're connected with the Center for Career Development on campus, as well as the Worth Center for Neurodiversity and Employment Innovation. We also have strategy instructors working within the School of Engineering and within the Engineering's Bridge program, which is a transitional program over the summer before college. So UConn is a very big place, and our program really helps students to make it smaller in a really good way by connecting with the campus and the various resources that we have to offer and providing a steady point of contact. So thank you, Chris. Appreciate the opportunity to talk.
Okay, no problem. We really appreciate you being here tonight, Allison. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and then we're going to get to our Q&A from our audience tonight. So I'd like to just go around the entire panel. My first question really has to do with, and it actually came up in the Q&A already. Can you talk a little about how recent testing has to be in order to qualify for one of your programs, such as psychoeducational testing, kind of what you think recent is in terms of your school, in terms of that eligibility process. So, Lynn, how about you? Would you like to start? Lynn De Silva.
As opposed to Lynn University.
Correct.
So we are looking for testing to be about 3 years new. So we say 3 years, and I say it the way I say it because given COVID and some of the speed bumps that students and families have encountered trying to schedule testing and get testing done and getting it back, it's tough. It's tough. So we don't want that to be a barrier for anybody to apply. So we're looking for 3 years, but certainly if it's 4 or 5 years new, we can work with that. And I'm happy to talk to anybody if, they want to talk specifically about that.
Okay. Anyone else would like to just talk about the eligibility process and recent testing?
Talk about it related to the Center for Students with Disabilities in general, since we don't have a documentation requirement for the Beyond Access program. We don't have a set guideline for the age of documentation. Our primary source of information is always student self-report. So it's very important for students to have good self-awareness and be self-advocates and know themselves. We often do need some form of documentation because it helps us understand a student's condition and what their needs might be. But we're not really limiting documentation to a certain time range. But we would engage with students individually on a case-by-case basis to talk about what's needed to support each request.
Okay, thank you. Freddie?
So actually, based on what Lynn said before, I completely agree with her. We're at 3 years. We are being a little bit flexible in the midst of COVID testing as well.
Okay. Joseph?
I would say similarly to Allison and UConn, there's no specific documentation requirement or time frame. The recommendation we typically tell students is within the last 5 years. But documentation can take many forms, many different factors, and the ultimate form of documentation is what comes out of the student's mouth when they sit down in front of us. That's the thing that we take into account more than anything else. I do tell students, depending on what their overall educational goals are in sort of the long run, that documentation may become relevant later. I try not to, I'm not scaring freshman students off by talking about grad school, but that is something that they may want to keep in mind depending on what sort of tests that they might want to get accommodated for in the future. So I just try to put it out there that no specific documentation requirement or time frame, recommendations in the last 5 years. And I try to sort of gently tell them, keep in mind what your overall educational goals might be going forward at the college, that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. And Mary Ellen Marist?
Yeah, kind of a mixed, we definitely are looking for documentation within, 3 years. But the thing is with COVID, like Lynn was saying, we would take it up to 5, but typically it would be 3 because we do like current documentation. But we do have an interactive process that, we meet with students to find out what their needs are as well.
Okay. Okay. Couple of questions coming in. Some of your programs are fee-based. So the question was kind of along financial aid. So I'm going to kind of handle it 2 ways. And if you can kind of be brief in your answer, I know the financial aid process is it's a whole nother Zoom call, and we actually have those here at Greenwich High School. So if you can kind of talk a little bit about financial aid and maybe specific, if your fee-based programs have ways that can be paid through third sources. Anyone? How
Sure,
about, go ahead, Freddie.
Sure, I'll be very brief here at Lynn University. We have merit-based scholarships. All of our institutions accept need-based scholarships with need-based aid, which could be the FAFSA or the CSS profile. And then one of the great things with Lynn University is our academic support program is called the Institute for Achievement and Learning. And we do provide an IAL grant that is need-based due to the FAFSA.
Unmute. How about at with the Arch Learning community? Are there other or third party resources that can pay for that program?
At this point in time, we don't have third-party resources, but all of our students do receive grants. They all do receive scholarships. Our typical average cost per year for all of our Dean College students runs between $25,000 and $30,000. So Arch students as well as non-Arch students are all eligible for all of those scholarships and grants.
Okay, thank you. Manhattanville?
So at this time, our fee-based programs are derived primarily from out-of-pocket payment, but we do accept and often refer students to the programs that assist students through New York State. So New York State can support some students pursuing things in higher education, particularly learning support programs. They're not available to everybody, and they can be specific and often are sort of connected to folks who are already connected to vocational support or something like that from high school. Those supports do exist, and I try to put that information on our website, and because they ask for specific hour-by-hour timeframes in which students meet with their learning specialists. So through the college, no, but through the state at times, yes.
Mary Ellen?
Sure. Yeah. So specifically in our learning support program, we tend to have a lot of families and parents that give back, which is really, really nice. And right now we actually are able to give out 5 scholarships to incoming students for our learning support program. And then we give out 3 to juniors. And then there's a bunch of other endowed scholarships as well that are offered through, student financial services as well. So that can offset the cost.
Okay. Allison?
Yes, so we have had students pay for Beyond Access through, external accounts through the state before, so we can handle that form of payment. We are fortunate to have, third-party donors. So we do have some scholarships available. We do ask students to apply for those scholarships, and the applications are due prior to each semester. And some of those scholarships, we do look at financial need for those. We also offer payment plans, which can be pretty flexible. We offer up to a 5-month payment plan, which can be helpful for many families.
Okay. I think that Dean and Marist maybe talked about a little bit about parents and signing a waiver for communication. Would the other schools like to talk a little bit about the relationship or what you kind of see in terms of communication with parents, in terms of, the learning program, academics, so on and so forth?
I can jump into this one, Chris, if you don't mind. So during the intake interview with the student, we suggest that they sign a FERPA proxy form to allow us to communicate with parents openly. We don't mandate it for students because obviously some students and their relationship with their parents were not entirely, we don't exactly know where that might be for students. And obviously 99% of the time the relationship is good and the lines of communication are open. It's wonderful. So we sort of put it out there as a strong suggestion. And try to tell students that it's not because we are checking in with mom and dad regularly because we are worried about you and that sort of thing. It's more because mom and dad are a support system like any other on a college campus that can help us in sort of building that web of support for you academically and involve them when it might be necessary or when you feel it might be necessary as well. So we've spoken about the mandatory FERPA waiver. I think there's a lot of advantages to it, and I think ultimately it's more, I suppose, stylistic is the wrong choice, but something to that effect. That it's yeah. I think it can be great.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else would like to kind of talk about the relationship you have with parents, or, at your particular school, or the role of the parent?
So we're a little bit interesting on our side, Chris. We actually only permit during the first semester one meeting with parents, because our coaches make sure that they don't arrive with a preconceived notion about the student. And then we touch base with the parent at the end of the first semester, because we want to help that student gain the confidence to advocate for themselves, even though we know the parents do such a great job at it.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to another question, and let me think here. This is a question about living on campus and selection of roommates. Can there be special considerations made for a student with special needs, whether they be on the autism spectrum or otherwise, in terms of roommate selection? Anyone like to talk about that a bit? How about Marist? Mary Ellen.
Sure. So all students, regardless if they're in the learning support program or not, will come to orientation in June, which is a one-day orientation. And during that time, they will actually take a housing survey, which will match them up closely with someone who is similar to them in terms of they like to go to bed early, or they like to go to bed late, or whatever it may be. So our students in the learning support program are typically not housed together. It could happen, randomly, but our goal is really for students to be like every other Marist student, and we want them to have that experience. So that's why we don't do that. But in terms of, we do have housing accommodations. So if a student has a medical condition or a psychological condition that, requires them to have a single room or a certain housing accommodation, there is paperwork for them to fill out online. And then we have a committee that reviews it and determines if it's a reasonable accommodation or not. So definitely, if that's something you think you may need, there is a process for that for sure.
Okay, I'm interested, maybe through the Pathways program, the Arch Learning Community. Are there any kind of special accommodations or for residential roommate selection, et cetera?
So all of our students are guaranteed housing for 4 years, but just very similar to Marist, we do not purposefully put students who are in the Arch program together in housing. So they're housed with the general population. We also have orientation in June. That's 2 days. Many of our students will meet one another within the Arch Learning Community and make the choice to be roommates. That happens quite often, but otherwise we do the same thing as far as them filling out a survey and trying to match them as best with people that have similar lifestyles as they do.
Okay, thank you. I just ask one more panelist on this. I'm just curious, from the UConn perspective, with such a large university, how you kind of look at this in terms of roommate selection, or if there are any special accommodations made in terms of residences.
Sure. So similar to, others, students select their rooms through the residential life process. So they also, complete their surveys and are matched with a roommate. Through the accommodation side of our office, the Center for Students with Disabilities. If there are concerns regarding housing, regarding roommate selection, for incoming students, we would encourage those students, once they are, admitted and have committed to coming to UConn, to register with the office and meet with their disability service professional. Depending on the type of condition, it may be an appropriate accommodation to have something like a compatible roommate. So another student who you identify and who identifies you as being a good fit as a roommate, and then other options that would be determined between the student and their disability service professional.
Okay. Okay, we're going to move on, folks, to a couple more questions that are coming in the Q&A. And I would like Lynn University to answer this question, since I believe, Freddie, you're an admissions rep. Where are we in the application process for fall of 2023? That came in from a parent.
Well, Chris, as you can see from the bags under my eyes, we're in committee season right now. So for the most part, I hate to give this answer, but it's true. It's going to depend on each and every institution. For schools that are still early action 1, early action 2, and rolling out admission, schools are still reviewing applications. If your son or daughter applied to a school that's early decision, hopefully you should be receiving a decision soon. But for the most part, most schools will still be accepting applications up to March 1st.
Okay. Would anyone else like to, maybe Manhattanville, would you, Joseph, would you like to answer that question, where you are? I mean, I know you are a special services person, but kind of where Manhattanville is in the admissions process.
Sure. So while it feels like the fall semester just began a few months ago, as you might be able to tell by the bags under my eyes, it's finals week next week. And apart from that, we are already seeing our applications. We already have a few students enrolled in the Valiant Learning Support Program for next fall. Some folks are just very much ahead of the game, which we very much encourage. You know, we don't want, I tell folks that obviously the earlier the better in terms of getting involved in the program, letting me know what it is that, you know, your student needs to be successful in getting onboarded. We start to see, I think, the first sort of trickles of students for our fall 23 or you know, next fall semesters around January. That's, I think, when I think when it starts to trickle in for us. So every school, as Freddie said, is different in terms of their application and that process. But yeah.
Thank you. We have a question that came in early. And I'd like several of you to kind of take a shot at this one in terms of answering. Whose responsibility is it, you know, on campus for a student to seek out supports? You know, let's say, you know, coming onto campus, number one, and then number two, let's say the student has applied for services. Do your support staff go and seek out the student, or are you expecting the student to fully be responsible and come to you? Would anyone like to tackle that one? Come on.
I can start. And I think the answer for our Dean College is it's a little bit of both. So ultimately, our ultimate goal is academic independence and self-advocacy. It can take a little practice as a first-year student to really figure out what that means. So we put all of the services in place. We put it in the student's schedule. We help them to understand what is expected of them. And if we see that they're falling off and maybe not attending their coaching sessions or not signing up for tutoring services that we suggest, you know, we do call them in and hope that they come. And if they don't, we've been known to look their schedule up and be hanging around the classroom that they might be in until they can kind of do it on their own. But, you know, we're there to catch them. We consider ourselves a safety net and we want to give them, you know, the best possible chance of success.
Thanks, Lynn. So I see, Freddie, you're chomping at the bit on this one, so I'm going to let you jump in.
I was just agreeing with Lynn. She blew it out of the water, but okay. On our side, and I'm sure all of us can agree with it, right? No news is good news. Especially at Lynn University, the academic coaches, if they reach out to you, that's a huge red flag as parents. That means that your son or daughter isn't going to class, isn't showing up for the session. So our thought process, no news is good news, and it has to be the student that's advocating for themselves.
Okay, I think we're all pretty much in agreement. I'm going to jump around a little bit. Quick question. I think someone had a question for both Dean and, hold on, let me look and see. Okay, Dean and Marist. Kind of your application process, time frame for admissions.
I could take it. So for Marist right now, we have 4 different processes. We have early decision 1, early action, early decision 2, and regular decision. So early decision 2 and regular decision applications we're still accepting. But early decision and early action were due back in November 15th. Wasn't that long ago, but it seems like ages ago. So early decisions come out right before the holidays. And then early action won't come out until like the middle of January, the end of January, and then we'll we'll start reviewing early decision 2 and regular decision. So that's kind of the timeline for Marist.
How about Dean?
So Dean College has early action 1, which is November 1st, early action 2, which is December 1st. For senior parents, those have already passed, but we are rolling admissions.
Very good. Okay, we're at 8 o'clock and we're going to be finishing up, but there's one last question that I would like to ask each of you to answer as briefly as you possibly can. Not briefly, but you know, I would really like a good answer from you. And I'd like to start with Allison Knight from UConn. What is the one thing you would tell a high school student that they need to be working on or focused on right now if they have a 504 plan or an IEP and are looking to attend college and maybe apply for an accommodations program like you have at UConn? What's the one thing that they should be focused on and working on in their senior year at Greenwich High School?
I would say the one thing would be to develop as much as possible a system that works for you to help you track what you need to do and manage your time, because that is going to serve you very well your first semester, and your strategy instructor can help you build on it and adapt it to the college lifestyle.
Thank you. Joseph, Manhattanville?
I would say that there's a difference between receiving help and asking for it. And knowing how to ask for help and utilizing that help is a skill in and of itself. And while you might have received all sorts of help from any number of wonderful people throughout your lives, throughout your academic careers, it's rare that we teach young folks how to ask, how to make the ask when they're either struggling or even when they're not struggling and just could use an extra, an extra bit of assistance somewhere. And I think the side effect of that is that we never want students coming through, I think, any one of our colleges to think that asking for help is a bad thing. It's a good thing, actually. And the only difference is that you have to know how to ask for it and you have to know when you need it. And it's not, don't be afraid to ask and don't be afraid to need it.
Thank you. Mary Ellen, Marist?
Yeah, so I would say that self-advocacy for sure, and just little steps, like making your own doctor appointment, doing a load of laundry, right? Running an errand, whatever it may be, because those things, I think, the academics are really important, but the social aspect is just as important when you get to college, and being able to manage those small things is going to make a big difference, because if you've never done it before, it's a lot to do when you get to college and it could be really overwhelming. So if you know how to make that appointment and do a load of laundry, you'll be ready to go for college in the fall. So just small steps.
Thank you. Freddie?
So I'm going to switch up the question a little bit. I'm going to answer it from an admission perspective. The truth of the matter is that acceptance rates don't matter. And as you're looking at institutions, what you really want to focus on is this going to be the right social community for you, the right learning culture, and the proper career outcomes. Not to scare you, but 87% of students changed their major their first year in college. So as you're looking at schools that have incredible academic support services, go through the majors and make sure they have your top 5. But at the end of the day, my colleague said it best, almost the theme of embrace failure, find your structure, learn how to advocate. There's no such thing as a stupid question. But from the admission side, all I can say is acceptance rates don't matter. What matters is where you go and what you do with the opportunities behind it.
Thank you. And Lynn De Silva, Dean College?
I think my colleagues said it best. Self-advocacy is absolutely a must. Being comfortable knowing your learning strengths and how you learn best, but also being able to understand those challenges and your learning differences is so helpful when you come to college, because it helps all of us help you. So, the desire to use supports, it's very different in college than it is in high school, right? Everybody in college uses supports. You will receive lots of encouragement from other students and from faculty and staff to use the supports that are available to you, because it's everyone's goal for a student to be successful.
Thank you. So on that note, I'm gonna kind of close things for this evening. I want to thank our parents and students that are out there in the audience tonight for attending. Remember, we did record this evening, so we will be putting this on our website for future use. And I just want to say, you know, whether parents and students, whether you have an interest in attending one of these wonderful institutions or not, the important part of tonight was to hear about accommodations, what accommodations are out there, what they look like in college, how your student, son or daughter, needs to advocate and self-advocate in terms of the application process, so on and so forth. So tonight's presentation wasn't just about, you know, the 5 wonderful colleges and universities we have online, but it's really about the supports and the types of supports and how to access them. And the amazing thing for me is, over the last 30 years that I've been involved in education, is how many different types of supports are out there, different types of programs, ASD programs, so on and so forth, and they continue to grow and change, as we've seen with UConn. UConn, you've changed your name, you've done things so much differently. And the other wonderful thing about tonight is we have a large state university on our call. We've had some smaller private universities. So we've had a nice mix. We've had some local schools. We've had some schools a little bit further away. And just to let the parents know out there as well, these are 5 schools that I know myself, as the transition person at Greenwich High School, that I recommend when I'm asked to participate in a discussion regarding a student looking for accommodations. These are schools that are well known. These are schools that we've had students from Greenwich High School attend and be successful at. So I thank everyone on this wonderful Thursday evening, even though it's only 30 degrees up here in Connecticut, but not 75 in Boca. But I thank everyone for attending tonight. I hope everyone has a wonderful, happy, and healthy holiday season. And I thank our panelists for being here. And I want to thank one other person. I thank Aaron Johnson, who behind the scenes kind of pulled this thing together and did the technology part, and really helped me. And Aaron, I really appreciate it. Thank you for being there for us tonight. And again, everyone, have a wonderful evening. Panelists, I really appreciate it. And again, if there are questions, parents, you can always reach out to me. Usually, if I can't answer the question, I will reach out to one of these wonderful resources that are on screen tonight, and I will get the answer for you. So thank you, and have a great evening, everyone. Appreciate it.